Hello and welcome to the Crypto Club and Digital Assets Weekly Catch-up on Zoom. If you're a beginner in crypto and you're just learning about all these terms and phrases and buzzwords and everything, then stick around and come and learn with us. If you're somebody who's been in this space for a while, then again, come and join us. We hold these sessions every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time, and everyone's welcome. We never know quite what we're going to be talking about. It really depends upon the audience that joins us, but we quite often talk about crypto, blockchain, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, TGEs, any other three-letter acronyms, really. If you're running a project and you'd like to talk about it, we've got our Gone in 180 Seconds sessions. This is where you get to talk about your project for 3 minutes without the aid of slides or websites or, hey, take a look at this. Just talk about it for 3 minutes. Think about it as an extended elevator pitch. And we get people who talk about their tokenization projects, their various NFTs, their various blockchain projects. Really great mix of things. More importantly, it'd be great if you join us next time as well. Meanwhile, if you're following this on YouTube, do remember to click on the like, the subscribe, click that little button so you get the reminder. And so let's see who's going to come and join us today. And we're joined by the legendary Mark Jarrett as well. Hey, Mark.
Hello.
And we're joined by iPhone. Hello, iPhone. Always great when people haven't renamed their devices, whatever. Joined by Hugo as well. Hello, Hugo. Welcome back.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, good, thank you. There we go. Hugo knows the score. He's got his camera on. He's happy to say hello and that. And Ken, you're going to say hello now?
Hi.
Hey, Ken. Hello.
Hi.
And who's iPhone? Come on, I can see someone on his camera, which is great. And he's on mute.
There we go. Hello, everyone.
Hello
That's me here. How are you doing, guys?
No problem. Welcome to everybody. And for anyone who's not been to any of these sessions before, we never know quite where we're going to go on these. That's part of the fun of it. As long as it's crypto, blockchain type related, that usually works. And we have a real variety of people who've got varying levels of knowledge, experience in that. So for people who are beginners, this is a great place to come. For people who are more experienced. So guys, Ken and Mr. iPhone, you want to tell us a bit more about yourselves?
Yeah, so I'm just here to network really, see what everyone's doing. I'm not really heavily into crypto or anything like that. I used to have a mining rig, so that's the space I'm interested in, mining, to see if it's still profitable or not. And I know a lot of companies, you can purchase a mining device and then kind of commercially lease it to them. So yeah, it's just like I said, I'm here to network and see what everyone's doing and just keep up to date with knowledge really.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've got the legendary networker with us with Mark, who runs 1,000,001 WhatsApp networking groups.
I certainly do.
I'm sure he'd be happy to chat to you about those.
Yeah, how long has this group been going on for these Zooms? How long have they been going on for?
So this group, I set it up originally as the Bucks Crypto Club about 4 or 5 years ago. Wow. It used to be, just for info for everybody, it used to be that we used to meet up every Sunday evening in my local town. And how it came about was when I started getting into crypto, I was really into blockchain, which is the technology that underpins crypto. And I started getting into crypto a little bit and realized there was a lot to learn. And the best way of learning is to get other people to share their knowledge with you. So I set the group up. Used to meet in a coffee shop every Sunday evening. And it was done on a Sunday evening simply because I went for a coffee on a Sunday evening anyway. And so if no one showed up, I didn't care because I was there to have a cup of coffee anyway. And then suddenly we had about 8 people joining us each week, which was brilliant in the local town. Then COVID kicked in. So COVID kicked in, lockdowns and everything. So I took it online. And then we had various people join us. So we've now got likes of, it says G, but it's actually Gabrielle, who is currently in Ireland, I think, but previously from Spain. We've got Mark from West Sussex. We've got Peter, who I think is just the north of me, in more central England. Yeah, so we've got a real mix. And we've got people at different levels and that. So it's great for you to join us. Ken, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been in crypto for quite a while. I think I met you before in 19, 2018. At I think it was an expo or conference in Olympia. It was
Yeah, okay.
something like that. I think it was on the EOS stand, if EOS is still going.
Yeah. They definitely are as a crypto organization. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I've been in crypto for quite a while, quite a long time. And so this evening, sort of, it's a bit quiet evening, so I decided to join the stream.
Brilliant. Well, welcome aboard. And this is a great thing. We get people who either, the new to this or they're completely experienced or they know me. And it's exactly as you say, Ken. It's like, oh, yeah, I met you at such and such. And I think I might remember the session you're talking about. 2018 was certainly really active in the blockchain space, and there were lots of conferences and that. And I think that was actually the conference where I went along with a whole list of sessions I wanted to go to and ended up going to none of them because people kept bumping into me and saying, I would love to speak to you. And then there was actually at one point, there was a queue forming of people who wanted to speak to me next, which was incredible. So there was lots of stuff going on then. So that's great. So welcome aboard, welcome back and everything. That's great. Mark, meanwhile, is just a general, as I say, he's a networker extraordinaire. He runs crypto groups. He runs many other groups as well. I think that's fair to say, isn't it, Mark?
It is, and this is quite bizarre because my father was called Ken and my mother was called Gabrielle, and we've both got a Ken and a Gabrielle here. Fantastic, yeah. So at the end of the day, business boils down to people and trust. And what I've done is created and curated this enormous ecosystem full of some of the world's leading thought leaders and entrepreneurs, and created a place where they feel safe to engage, and then the business comes later. So I'm all about relationship building. And at the end of the day, that's what life is all about, really. Relationships, isn't it? Relationships with our partner, friends, family, and human beings in general. Here endeth the lesson.
So this is usually where Mark just sits back and listens and goes to that stuff. So I don't know if anyone's got any particular topics they'd like to open up with or anything they want to know about or anything. I quite often have a couple of other people who are great at asking some really basic questions. So, Hugo, go for it.
Yeah, it's more of a little bit of a report that came out. I saw it this week. I think it's recent, saying that the total people holding crypto went from about 420 million a year ago to 580 million at the end of 2023. I mean, I always wanted to have some type of number. I know some of them are estimates and so on. I don't know if somebody else saw that number or if they have different numbers, because I thought that was quite interesting.
Yep.
And especially the thing that's always on my mind is how does that compare to adoption versus the general population, right? But I don't know if anybody else heard or read something along those lines.
I actually saw some of that. It's worth sharing. I'll share my initial thoughts, then we'll open it up on that. It's very much based on how many crypto wallets there are. And one of the challenges is that you never actually know what's the relationship between how many wallets there are and how many people there are. And there has been a really big growth in particularly Bitcoin wallets in the last 12 months, which I think is what that report's mainly about. And one of the problems is that there's a real growth in the Bitcoin domain around what are called Bitcoin ordinals. So these are, for those who understand about how Bitcoin works and how Bitcoin is actually a massive ledger, which is like a big database that says for every address how many Bitcoins are allocated to it. But a Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million what are called Satoshis. And so each individual Satoshi has a record on a blockchain potentially. And an ordinal is where someone is using that in some way to hold some information. So it's like an inscription, for example. And there's been a massive growth in ordinals, which does not necessarily mean there's been a massive growth in people owning Bitcoin as such, but it does mean there's been a big growth in wallets as such. So the use of wallets is definitely growing, but not at the pace that I think is being broadcast. Now, coming back to your question about how does it compare to, as I keep describing it, the real world of finance, you think about total market capitalization of all cryptos, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the others, and that is, last time I checked, $1.64 trillion, which sounds a huge number, but I think it's probably less than the total trading volume of fiat money every day. So it's kind of tiny in a way. But it's interesting, no one can actually work out how many real crypto wallet holders there are. I was asked a while ago, the UK government is obviously interested because they're thinking about it in terms of protecting citizens, in inverted commas. And so when they get the likes of the UK FCA, so that's the Financial Conduct Authority, whose remit is to, first of all, prevent systemic failure of the financial services industry, but secondly, to protect consumers from themselves, it would appear a lot of the time. The question was asked, well, how many people in the UK own crypto? And the numbers vary wildly, because there's no way when you look at a crypto wallet of knowing where the person is, or whether the same wallets, different wallets are owned by the same person. So I think in the UK, they reckon somewhere, is it between 5 and 20% of people in the UK now own crypto in some way? Which is a massive range. 5% is what, 6 million, not 6 million, 3 million people in the UK, and 20% is 16 million. So it's somewhere between there. That's my view. I don't know if others got thoughts. Peter, got any thinking on that?
Yeah, just that count. Let's say Revolut. We were talking about on and off ramps, incidentally, the last few meetings, and Revolut's one of the few banks where you can still take money on and off. And of course, you can buy something that looks like you own crypto. I believe some of it you can even transfer out to a wallet now. But by owning it on Revolut, I don't even have a wallet for any of those coins. Yeah.
And that's a really good.
UK specific, and then generally the numbers. Are you counting in things like the Chinese digital yuan project? Because there's north of 100 million users out there. People who know they're users. I don't know if they have a wallet, by the way, or whether that's something different, a different kind of wallet.
So it's interesting on both those, because you're absolutely right. So two companies that spring to mind in the UK are Revolut and e-Toro. And for those who don't know Revolut, it provides payment services. So it's great. If you're traveling around the world, it's awesome because you don't have to buy currencies. You just hand your card over and they automatically translate it and everything. But they've got a crypto service. But the way it works is that you're not actually owning the crypto, you're owning the rights of the use of the crypto. So exactly as Peter says, that means you can buy an exposure to crypto without actually having a crypto wallet. So they might well have millions of people doing that. I mentioned the other company, which is e-Toro. e-Toro is a trading company, so you can buy things like stocks and shares through them. They've extended to include crypto as well. And again, they have like a nominee account structure, which is where you can get exposure to Bitcoin or Ethereum without actually owning it as such. So you're right, Peter, that's two areas where people might actually think they own crypto, but don't. But it does give them an exposure to it. And that probably takes us on quite nicely. Some of you may have seen in the news about the Bitcoin ETFs that have been approved in the USA. The Securities Exchange Commission a couple of weeks ago approved, I think it's 11 ETFs. And an ETF is a way of having exposure to a pool of funds that includes crypto without you physically owning crypto. So, Hugo, coming back to your point about how many people have got crypto, it kind of depends what you mean by got crypto. If you mean in a physical or a logical wallet where you own the private keys, then that's one number. But if you mean people who've now got exposure to it, then that's a different number. So you look at some companies own shares in MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy, who are a privately owned business intelligence company, who've got massive holdings of Bitcoin, which means that effectively if you own shares in MicroStrategy, you've kind of got exposure to Bitcoin as well. So I don't know, Ken, you got any thoughts on this? Because you say you've been in this space for a while.
Yeah, well, my thoughts with regards to this is I thought, because I think it was a report was commissioned by crypto.com. And so I thought it was slightly high. And you've actually gone through a lot of the thinking that I had in terms of people being on Revolut, people having multiple wallets. And I think in their report, they also had sort of the indirect exposure, like those who bought the MicroStrategy shares and so forth. And they sort of, so it was a positive report and kind of designed to make the industry look good. So in terms of the number, I think it's a bit high, but I definitely think we're definitely in the hundreds of million, but over 500 million, it's, it's give or take, but some of the stuff that they included in it, like I said, especially my biggest thing is the wallet count, because most people have multiple wallets, and you've got to just think of those bots doing their thing on the exchanges. I mean, they're creating wallets every minute, trading, and then just dumping the wallet. Would they count those? So but just talking about that, one of the major things that for me that came out this week with the ETF, since you mentioned it, was Bitwise. So with all the companies that had their ETFs, all the 10 of them, was it 11? So you've got, some chain analysis companies who are able to actually find out their Bitcoin addresses.
Mm-hmm.
But those were only available to people who actually pay for these services. The main thing is Bitwise went out and they basically tweeted out their own address to say, look, in terms of, transparency, and it's a new kind of like accounting system, it's auditing being live and everybody can see. So they actually tweeted out their address, they're holding the Bitcoins from the ETFs. And then, so what happened was people just started sending in Satoshis and ordinals. So, I mean, that's going to cause a bit of an auditing issue for Bitwise, because it's supposed to be 1-for-1 in terms of the ETF. Now you've got all sorts of things going into that address. But I quite like the fact that the transparency in future, you shouldn't really wait for 3 months or a year actually for accounts to be audited. You could just have a look online and do the verification. That bit I quite like. The other bit where people were just playing around was just, well, that's crypto for you.
And it is fascinating if we take a look. In fact, I'm just checking at the moment. I'll show the screenshot that they punched out. That Bitwise, exactly as you say, actually did a tweet where they said, Bitwise ETF, here we go. Here is our Bitcoin wallet address. And unfortunately, that's just a screenshot, and I'm not going to go and type it in or anything. But the amazing thing is, with the Bitcoin blockchain and several other blockchains, if you actually type in that full wallet address, then you do find out how many Bitcoins are actually in there or how many are associated with it. So that is an incredible thing that you think about auditing of assets. This was one of the things with Tether. So Tether being a US dollar-backed stable coin, where they claimed initially that they were backed 1-for-1 with US dollars for every Bitcoin they held and so on. Then with this mechanism, you can actually see how many what their holdings are. In this case, you can see the holdings in Bitcoin and that. So I think that's wonderful transparency, exactly as you say. Yeah, really good. That's an interesting news story to share, because I think it's a really positive side as well, because you quite often keep hearing from governments, from regulators all the time about, crypto is just for money laundering, criminal activity, blah, blah, blah. But this is actually a great example of transparency and openness and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's a good one for sharing that. I don't know, anyone got any other news or anything that they've seen of interest of late?
Just
Crypto.
very quickly, the last point is to add to the number of users. I did see some numbers, for example, from Binance. They say they have 170 million users. Coinbase says they have 100 million, and what is it? Crypto.com that they have 80 million. I mean, of course, there's some overlap there and so on. But actually, the reason why I'm interested in this question is also there was there's all types of crypto, right? We're talking about Bitcoin, but then there's also Ether and things like that. And they had the distribution. I think 50% of those 580 million were Bitcoin holders. But that's where it gets interesting. Like you said, you mentioned Revolut, then we mentioned Coinbase, in which you don't own the keys to the wallet that you have. But then, yeah, the ETFs and so on, you can own Bitcoin indirectly and things like that. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting number in the context of how is this industry going to evolve? How much is it going to mix with the traditional financial instruments, and how much is it going to bypass banks, which is part of the vision and things like that. I think that's why it's quite interesting. So thank you everyone for your comments, because I think that expands on those on those points.
The other extension as well to think about in the not too distant future, Peter mentioned the digital yuan. So there is a project in China which is actually a central bank digital currency. So that is not a cryptocurrency. It is a centrally managed digital currency. And there's quite a big difference between the two. You think about one of the notions around crypto is it's decentralized, there's no control. The difference with a central bank digital currency is, and the clue's in the word, it's central. But the way it kind of works in some ways is that they do have digital wallets in much the same way as you have apps on your mobile phone to manage your bank account. Then you'll have apps on your phone to potentially manage digital currencies like the e-yuan and that. In fact, I think it's linked into WeChat in China. I think that's the way it works, which is China's equivalent of WhatsApp or Telegram type thing. So I think it's going to be really interesting the next 2 years in particular. The Bank of England is doing a lot of work around what is being called the digital pound, which is a nice term to use instead of Bank of England central bank digital currency. But if you take a look at their papers on what they've done around the exploration into the architecture of it and everything at the moment, that is very much going to be where companies will offer services which are effectively wallets to manage and link in to the central bank ledger, in effect. So once you get to that point, will you actually be able to tell the difference when you're paying for something between paying for something in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or the Bank of England Bitcoin? Doesn't actually matter, does it? Rather like with Revolut, with Revolut, I can go to Dubai, and it doesn't matter if I'm paying the bill in dollars, pounds, or Dubai whatevers. I don't actually know anymore. All I know is I hand the card over, some digital transaction takes place, magic happens, and I get my cup of coffee. So the same will be true with CBDCs, which is shorthand term for that. And so this is where, as Peter says, there's 100 million users in China with that. There's also a project in India with that they were looking to scale up to 100 million users again of the retail CBDC in India. There's less successful examples in Nigeria with the e-Naira, which I think was foisted upon the citizens and didn't go down well at all, wasn't very popular. There's one in El Salvador, if I remember correctly. There's the Sand Dollar, and there's a couple others. So there's all sorts of these things going on. So I think, Hugo, that's a very long-winded way of me thinking that I think we're just naturally evolving towards digital money, which means online wallets. And once everyone's comfortable with that and cash kind of drifts away, then whether it's being crypto, as in Bitcoin, Ethereum, this kind of thing, whether it's in NFTs that represent Starbucks reward points, or whether it's Bank of England backed digital currency, we may not actually care anymore. And it'll just be all the same in the wallet. So I don't know. Anyone got any other thoughts about that?
Just on that, Gary, I've got a CL card linked to my ledger, and that's the same. I can go in the app and say which currency I want it to knock out, whether it's Bitcoin or Ripple or whatever. But I've tested it, went to Safeways, bought my lunch, paid for it effectively in Bitcoin, which at the point of transaction, it converts. But in terms of custody, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It's certainly interesting. I think what you find is that over a period of time, technology results in these things blurring. And so you suddenly stop knowing, where does Bitcoin stop? Where does layer 2 start? Or where does digital assets stop? And where does British pound start and end and everything? It gets to the point where all of a sudden it doesn't matter. And it's a little bit like a few years ago, when we started talking about, which crypto is going to take off. Is it going to be Bitcoin? Is it going to be Ethereum? Blah, 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 blah. I said, well, actually, it doesn't matter. If you go back to, everyone remember VHS as the video technology? It's kind of like going back to the VHS versus Betamax versus Philips 2000 as a technology standard. But actually, do you all know who the real winner was out of all of that between VHS, Betamax, and Philips 2000? Go on, Pip. Mark's going to offer a view.
From what I understand, Betamax was superior,
Mm-hmm.
but VHS won out.
Yeah. The real winner was the producer of the SCART socket on the back of the TV set. That meant it didn't matter what you plugged in, they all worked. And so this is the thing, that it's interoperability that matters. So actually, Bitcoin is good for payments, Ethereum is good for programmability and so on. But actually, when you start looking at the interoperability layers, I think Chainsy is one. I've forgotten some of the other ones now. But I think it's the interoperability. And then all of a sudden you've got, as Peter says, you stop knowing what you're actually using because the card or the compute behind the card does it for you, which means all of a sudden it doesn't really matter whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Brickcoin or whatever. It's just done, and people don't worry.
Do you think, sorry, I'm asking these many questions, but actually this is a really good point. Do you, I think there are some important implications, because in some of these cryptocurrencies, like Ether or Ethereum, you can actually buy decentralized applications in which you can make a loan directly to somebody else and bypass the banks. And I think that was some of the resistance that retail banks and payment processors had against a digital pound or a digital dollar. Any thoughts on that? Because I actually agree with you, as in order to make it easy for the consumer, there has to be they don't need to know everything that goes on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But for some of these use cases, the implications are big. I remember an article some time ago by Andreessen Horowitz arguing that if every citizen could have a digital wallet with an account in like in the central bank of the US, so you could bypass so many things, and then the banks wouldn't have deposits. Any thoughts on that, like in the context of what we're talking about?
Absolutely. So I think everyone, with the exception of Gabrielle, is in the UK. So my apologies, Gabrielle. I'm going to use what's going on in the UK at the moment with the Bank of England. When you actually look at their research papers around what the politicians are calling Bitcoin, but is a digital currency. When you read the papers describing the architecture, none of them mention retail banking anywhere. It ceases to exist. What they mention is, I think it's PSPs, which is payment service providers, and intermediaries and gateway providers and that. And so I think what we're effectively going to see is the potential for retail banking. And this is where I keep telling people locally who are moaning about, oh, the local branch of such and such is shut down, I have to travel 10 miles to go to my bank now. There will be no high street banks because there's no need for them. And there will be no need for retail banks because you'll have a wallet that will connect to a network, a blockchain, a database, a whatever, which will provide the interoperability. Now, what that provides is you've suddenly, if you wipe out the retail banking sector, which, the HSBC, Barclays, and that are not going to be happy about, obviously, but you suddenly wipe out a whole layer of cost. Most people that I know who don't like crypto say, "Oh, I don't like crypto because I don't understand it." And I go, "Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Do you understand how traditional banking works?" And they go, "I think so." You say, "Well, tell me, how does a payment work? You go into a shop, you pay for something. Tell me how it works." And they know it from the point of view of, well, I swipe my card or my coin, my card or my phone, and the payment automatically comes out the bank. And you go, "No, you've got payment that goes to the store. You've got a settlement process. You've got the whole load of what are known as Nostro and Vostro accounts if you're going between companies. There's the central bank settlement system, net settlements. There's all sorts of stuff. And it's smoke and mirrors. It's amazing how it works because it gives the appearance that money has come straight out your bank account and has gone straight into the store owner. And it's not that way. It's actually far more complex. And when you look at the layers, so you've got like the Swift network that sits behind a lot of stuff, you've got whole interoperability. If you can get rid of that, that is incredibly efficient. And by efficient, I mean lower cost, which is fascinating. So I think that there's the good side of a central bank operated digital currency, that it reduces costs in that. And then there's a bad side by the very virtue of the word central. So, and that introduces a whole layer of things. So I see we've just been joined by Vinay. Hey, Vinay.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can indeed.
Hi, Gary. Hi, Gary. I'm a new student, so I'm listening and observing. And well, I love to invest in blockchain technologies and bitcoins and stuff like that. But the finance power in my home is with my wife, so she does the investments. She would not let me actually give me free hand because once upon a time I dabbled in stocks and shares and I had a big loss.
Okay.
So I try to gain knowledge, but we have to live with this system. And I want to learn from you. And I have been missing all your knowledge sharing sessions and all these sessions. I keep getting your invites and I keep telling me, last year was a bit challenging actually because my mom passed away. She was in ICU, so I had to make a few trips to India and I was actually, so anyway, that's past is past. I'm looking forward to the future and I'd love to interact more. And maybe, as I said, one day I'd come down to your nearby coffee shop, grab a coffee with you or buy you a coffee or lunch in exchange for all the knowledge that you have been imparting to us with the wisdom.
Fantastic. Well, I always say if people want to do catch-ups, we do record these sessions on YouTube, so you can check it out on YouTube as well. There's 2 or 3 years worth of videos on there now, which is great. Which is why I always say to people who are on this call, please don't share any personal details.
I hide my name and photo?
No, your name and photo is fine. That's not a problem. But you sometimes get people start.
Because there's a lot of personal information over there. You can zoom in, and your AI is working.
Yeah, it's not a problem. No. If anyone ever does mention something, because occasionally you get someone who says, "Oh yeah, well I've got a crypto account with crypto.com, and I've got 3 Bitcoin in it, which I bought on the 27th of February or whatever," and you go, "I'll edit that out of the video." But that's not a problem. No. So welcome aboard, Vinay. And this session is all about learning, sharing, and that
I'll
kind of
try to make it a bit more regular. I'll adjust my schedule for this, and it would be good to know others, your other team members here, and there Mr. G and Mr. iPhone 109, and Mr. Hugo, Mr. Ken, Mr. Mark, Jared, and Peter Parks. A pleasure to meet with all of you.
Excellent. The only thing I'll offer is that Mr. G is actually Gabrielle or Gabriella.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Mr. iPhone hasn't said what his real name is, but this sometimes happens. Don't worry.
I like Mr. G because my last name is also Mr. G.
Excellent. That's great. Okay. Right. Let's open it back out then. So, Hugo, that was probably a really long explanation of the perspectives about the growth of wallet ownership and the challenges of that.
Don't worry, it was awesome. And I think it sticks to the line of we never know what we're going to talk about. So, no, it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyone got any other topics they want to talk about? Or Vinay, if you've got any particular questions, please feel free to fire away.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I will definitely have the questions. I just wanted to listen for the first 5 minutes. And first of all, apologies, I was delayed because for some reason in my mind, I thought it is 7:30, but I got delayed. So sorry about that.
It's not a problem at all. Okay. Anyone got? Go for it, Peter.
I put something in there. A couple of people have mentioned now about investing, and you mentioned something there about the Betamax versus VHS and films, etc. And it's the old adage, don't look for gold, sell the picks and shovels. Yeah.
Yep.
And part of that is what are the picks and shovels that you buy, and some of the names we've mentioned there. You mentioned MicroStrategy is a proxy for Bitcoin, and there's other companies in there with it. But since we're talking about wallets at the moment, an area of activity which I'm picking up is the custodians.
Mm-hmm.
These custodian licenses. And Ripple spent about 250 million, I think it was, recently buying a custodian. And they've now got a payments license as well. And as you said, now you're talking about banking. Well, actually, you're talking about payments. We're talking about payments, not banking. And which reminds me, and unfortunately, I can't get any of that equity at the moment. But when you talked about WeChat with their digital yuan, that's what we talked about last week. That's where we think Elon Musk with X is going down this all-encompassing app with payments, basically a WeChat app with the payments in. And I'm hoping the X is for the X Rising Phoenix. That'll be very well. But it's that what can you pick up that aren't really? It doesn't really matter which one goes which way. You're still going to be on the right side of it. And again, another one there's Circle. Stablecoins and CBC. Circle just have announced their IPO. So there's a custodian, and they've got a stable coin. Whether they get into the payments custodian space, I don't know. But there's over 2,000 coins out there now. I'm picking out of them, and whether it's going to be an Ether backed, a Bitcoin backed, a Ripple backed, whatever, the stable coin. Well, whatever it is, you're going to need custodians.
You're right. And custodian, digital asset custody is an area that fascinates me. And I get quite involved in that space. So you take a look at in the UK, for example, there are some digital asset custodians. You've got the likes of Fidelity who provide custodial services. Some of the crypto exchanges. So I think Archax, I think they've got a custodial service now. Zodia is a crypto custody service in the UK who are on the UK FCA register. I think you're right. So I've been involved around the technology behind custody. So the securing of keys, the management of private keys and everything. And it's fascinating because I think digital asset custody is a massive area which extends beyond just crypto custody. So you think about NFTs, for example, where an NFT is effectively a digital representation of ownership of something else digital. Well, you need to secure both the token, but also the underlying asset. And that's where custodianship is going to get really, really interesting. So I think that's definitely a growth area. You look at the likes of Fireblocks, who provide the infrastructure. They're one of the leaders in that space. Definitely, they've made great waves in that area. And then there's loads of other companies as well who are definitely positioning themselves in that space. But yeah, if anyone wants to talk about crypto custody as a topic in its own right, I can arrange for the team that I was doing stuff with to explain how crypto custody works with private keys. if anyone's into cryptography and wants to talk about Shamir secret sharing and all this kind of thing, I can definitely bring in a team who know a lot about that stuff. And I think you're right, Peter. There's a lot of stuff in there. I noticed join Mahir. Mahir, did I say your name right? Just joined us there.
Sorry, my throat. No, I'm the iPhone guy. I just put my name in there. So now,
brilliant.
yeah, sorry. So it's
Would
Meher.
love
Yeah,
to see
you
your
did.
face also.
Yeah, you did pronounce it well. Sorry, I was just ordering my food and I didn't want to be rude.
So Mr. iPhone, tell us about your interest in crypto then, or blockchain, or whatever.
Well, yeah, so I remember I mentioned it earlier. I built a mining rig. I was mining Ethereum. I tried to get up to 1 gigahash, but then the cost of the cards and everything, it was just so extortionate. I did it during lockdown. Yeah, it was really addictive. I felt like I was just chasing my own tail. Every time I made money, every time I was mining, I withdraw it, I put it into Coinbase and then into my current account, withdraw the money, and then I went and bought more RTX cards. So I kept purchasing graphics cards. Wanted to expand my rig, and then got to 23 RTX cards, and then obviously people were selling the cards a lot more extortionate as well because the value had gone up. And then the energy crisis happened, and then it just wasn't profitable. So then, yeah, I de-rigged it, took all my graphics cards, motherboards, processors, power supplies to computer exchange, and said you can have it all back.
So just how much heat does that generate? Because I think I've got an RTX 3090 in a laptop, and if I play a game, it gets hot.
It's a lot of heat. So my living room was about, and this is during the winter months, it was around 35 degrees. So I didn't turn my heating on for at least 4 months. It was very hot, but I wouldn't recommend it to do it in your house. You need like a basement or a commercial unit. So that's where I was. But
I put it in with my cannabis plants. Put it in with my cannabis plants.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was so addictive. Every morning, because you've got to, when you're mining, you've got to look at the temperature. You've got to make sure you don't fry your card. There's so many variables to it. And yeah, it was exciting. It was something I did during lockdown. I enjoyed it. And then when you YouTube, you see all the big players. They create farms, mining farms. And I thought, wow, that looks pretty good. But they're throwing a lot of money in to purchase the hardware, the equipment. So yeah, that's the space I was in, really. But what I'm looking for now is just trying to work out, if I had, let's say, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds, is there a way, or is there companies out there I can invest and get a return, but hands off? So that's where I am, just seeing what people are doing, basically. What I understand everyone's in crypto, but what is it they're doing in crypto? Are they just purchasing and just waiting for it to go up?
Well, this is the kind of thing that you can either buy the product, or you can buy something that relates to the product. As Peter was saying before, the people who made money in the California gold rush weren't the people who found gold. They were the people who sold the pickaxes and the maps for the people looking for the gold. And it's kind of, everyone's asking these days, who's producing the pickaxes? So this is where the likes of the exchanges, the crypto custodians, again, I think that's going to be a strong area of growth. The infrastructure services. So you take a look at the likes of Ripple. Ripple are doing a lot of stuff in the space. You look at some of the other companies who are investing in companies who are investing in crypto. So in the UK, for example, and I always say I'm not offering financial recommendations. I'm not endorsing companies, blah, blah, blah. But there are companies like of KR1 who were the first UK PLC who actually invested in crypto companies in some way. They did a reverse engineer They actually bought an existing public limited company and they acquired it, kind of thing. So they do stuff where they invest in crypto companies now. So there's loads and loads of stuff on there.
Sure.
But
what about yourself, Gary? What are you doing with crypto currently?
So for me, my passion is around the technology behind it. So if you think about going back to the California gold rush, I'm not really interested in the gold. I'm interested in the railroads and the hospitals and the buildings that go around supporting the gold rush. So I've been interested in blockchain and distributed ledger technology since 2014, 2015, I think it was. I became an independent consultant in 2016, where I actually worked with companies, particularly in the insurance industry, funnily enough, to help them to understand about what is a distributed ledger, how does cryptocurrency work and everything. And it's kind of quite funny, a quick story around crypto and insurance. I got invited by a very large international insurance company to come and talk to them about blockchain and crypto at one point. So I said, yeah, more than happy. I deliver talks and training sessions and that. So anything in particular you'd like to know about? You know, I was thinking they'd be talking about, what's the theft risk? What's the exposure? All this kind of thing. Said,
vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and they said, we'd like to know about crypto mining. I was like, that's interesting. You're kind of diversifying. You're trying to make a few quid with your mining rigs. And they said, no, what it is we've got a lot of clients at the moment who we're insuring their warehouse. And their warehouse at the moment is used for office supplies storage or grain storage or whatever. And these clients are saying, oh, yeah, we're turning into crypto mining facilities. So we'd like to know, is the risk profile of a crypto mining facility any different to a factory, for example? It's like, okay, so suddenly you've got a lot of energy going into that building. You've got a lot of heat being generated by that building. You've got a lot of air conditioning, all this kind of thing. And so they were fascinated because they were looking at it, and I thought it was brilliant. They were looking at it in terms of what is the risk and exposure of a crypto mining farm in terms of the liability if it catches fire or something. It's like, oh, that's a different way of thinking. So they weren't looking at buying crypto mining rigs. So my passion is around the underlying technology. So I kind of think about things. It's almost like the blockchain layer is the railroad. The protocol is like the trains that are operating on the railroad. And then when you've got things like NFTs or crypto tokens, that's like the tickets that you sell to generate the revenue to operate the services on the railroad. So there's those kind of different levels. So that's why I'm not actually that interested in buying and selling tickets, which is what the crypto is. But I am interested in the services that provide the ability to buy and sell the tickets. So that's me. Yeah. I don't know anyone else. I mean, I know, Hugo, you're working on some tokenization stuff, aren't you? Is that right?
Yeah, I think a little bit like you, I'm interested in the technology and the applications of the technology. I think tokenization of real world assets is amazing. It has a lot of benefits. Again, access, liquidity, being able to do this on a global scale and things like that. I would love to get into crypto trading and things like that. I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. But like you, yeah, I like the technology and I like the applications of it, which I think is what's going to drive adoption much higher. You know, trading was, I think, the first killer app, especially during COVID and so on. But there's so many more things that we can build on top of it.
Yeah. I talk about what I call the 5 blockchain mega cases. So you think about the 5 main areas where blockchain's being used, and one of them is cryptocurrency. But then another one is digital identity, which is a massive growth area. So you take a look at what happened in Estonia, where they use a blockchain-based system to manage digital identity of citizens and property and that kind of thing. Then you've got things like product traceability. So there's like couple of examples of that. Everledger, who do diamond tracing, although the company's been going through some interesting moves of late, but they do traceability of diamonds. So that's really interesting because you're doing provenance and traceability of small but valuable things. At the other end of the scale, you've got InsureWave, who insure ships. So you think, well, yeah, what's the relevance there? Well, what it means is that you can track and trace where vessels are going around the world. You can do things like if they're going into areas where there's piracy, or at the moment the Red Sea is a high risk area, then you can track and trace where the vessel's been and the containers and that. So that's another area. Another one is around smart contracts and tokenization, exactly as Hugo says. And I can't even remember what the fifth one was now. But so there's a whole range of them, and crypto trading and making money out of prices going up and down is just, I describe it as a sideshow. It's a distraction.
Yeah.
And the really interesting thing is actually what you can do with blockchains and distributed ledger. The people who are buying crypto because the price is going up or the token's going up, to me is a sideshow. It's kind of froth. What's really interesting is how people are using blockchains to do like provenance traceability. So Walmart did the Green Products Project. I can't remember the correct name of it now, where they track things like mangoes from a farm right the way through to the store and everything. So fascinating stuff. I could go on for hours on that, as people obviously realize.
Is there any upcoming meetups, Gary? Have you arranged anything?
Do you mean any physical in-person ones?
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
I need to get back into it. The challenge is always when to hold them, which is why I used to do them on a Sunday evening in my local coffee shop, simply on the basis that if no one showed up.
Gary, that's a good point, which I had also asked you before. And if you need help on being, I could be your, what you call them. I could be your the guy who, I can help you coordinate it in central London. So I can take care of all the logistics and everything, and
Okay.
you sort of, we do the, what do you mean? Like whatever he said, whatever he just asked about the in-person meetup. So I will make all the arrangements. All you have to say is, this is the date when you are free.
Okay.
And you need 10 people in the room, or 50 or 20 or whatever it is. And you will be there for, I don't know, for a lunch or a coffee or a tea or a dinner. Just tell me the instructions and I'll make it happen for you.
We'll catch up. Yeah.
What
Go
do
on,
you do
Mel.
Sorry, what do you do outside of crypto, Vinny? Are you like an events manager, or
Sorry?
what do you do outside of crypto? Like what's your day-to-day job?
Oh, I don't have a job. I think let's do an introduction. Let's not waste Gary's time on this call. We are meeting for the first time. I'll share my LinkedIn ID with you if you're interested in me. And
Brilliant.
if you have any work for me, I'm not an events manager, just as an FYI.
Okay.
Well, that's great. But please, as Mark has done already, if you want to share your LinkedIn contacts, you're more than welcome to connect.
I will put my LinkedIn here in the chat window. Anybody wants to connect with me, if Gary, if I have your permission.
Yeah.
My LinkedIn here. So I think Mihir just thought I'm doing event management. So although that's not my, I could do event management and start doing event management.
But it's fair enough. I used to run, I've still got two groups. So I've got my crypto club group and I've got my digital assets meetup group. So if anyone's on Meetup, you'll see the blockchain and digital assets meetup. I've got, I think it's like 2,100 members in it. And we used to meet up physically in London. So you could usually find a law firm who'd sponsor the events and host it and that kind of thing. But I find the convenience of Zoom to be just too great. And also, I'm only in the city about once a week at the moment. But yeah, if there's demand for it, I will organise an in-person meetup or something. And Vinny,
we can start and demand will pick up, actually. You know how Apple had made the iPhone. There was no demand, but they created iPhone and then it started.
There's demand. I used to run the blockchain digital assets meetup. we used to have 100 people going every month
Okay,
to
I've
the
shared
events.
my LinkedIn in the chat, and obviously I'm meeting all of you for the first time, so it would be useful to see everybody, including Mr. G and Gary. I think we have known each other for quite some time, I guess.
Yeah, as I say, please do feel free to share your contact details. But part of what I love about this, and I share the passion with Mark on this, is that sessions allow you to network, to interact, and that's where the real magic sometimes happens. I remember when lockdown kicked in originally, I started running some online sessions just as a general interest thing. And before I knew it, there was somebody in Hong Kong having a conversation with someone in the UK about personal protective equipment, so masks and that. It's like, that's magic. That's networking. So yeah,
the power of networking.
Exactly. Yeah, so Mark will definitely support us on that. Coming back onto the blockchain and crypto world, aside from organising meetings now, conscious we've only got a few minutes left, and some people may not have had an opportunity to speak that much. So here's a great chance. If anyone's got any questions or anything they want to share in the last few minutes, please fire away.
So Gary, when did you start having these Zoom calls? And like roughly, I want to see how much in terms of, how do I get the gist of it, basically, whatever I've missed.
Yeah. So the Zoom call started in, I think it was 2020, when I transitioned from being a meeting up in a coffee shop on a Sunday evening to there was this thing, what was it called? Lockdown, where we weren't allowed to go out or go anywhere, and we couldn't go within 2 meters of anybody in there. So it started during that period. And then when that stopped, I found that there were still people coming along. So if you check out on YouTube, there is a YouTube channel that I have under my name, which I'll share in the link in a minute. And that has got the complete archive of all of the sessions that we've run every week. So I'll share my channel, and there's a couple of playlists in there, and one is the Crypto and Digital Assets Meetup, which has got about 60 things in there. Sorry. In fact, sorry, it's just kicking off there. Let me just share in here. Take a look on YouTube. You'll find a whole back catalogue of all the events that we've run online every single week. I think apart from 1 week where I didn't click the record button or something. So yeah, please take a look at that, and it'd be good if people can join in for future ones. I'll do the YouTube bit now. Do click on the subscribe, like, make comments, blah blah blah. Because I think I've got about 300 followers or something. And I'd be keen to grow that as well. So, folks, we're pretty much on the hour now. In fact, I run these 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time. I try to keep them on time. So I'll just close off by saying thank you to everyone for coming on today. Hopefully you've learned some interesting things or shared things, whether it's CBDCs, the Bank of England work, whether it's some of the stuff around tokenization, real world assets. But yeah, my thinking is that blockchain and crypto every year has something new that kicks off a wave of interest. And I think this might be the year of digital asset custody. This is not investment advice, but definitely go and check that out. So anyway, folks, thanks for your time. Have a great day.